What's up, everybody? This is Kerry, and these are my survivor picks for week 5. Now, I'm playing the ESPN Eliminator Challenge, and look down here at the bottom there. 30,000 of almost 400,000 entries are eliminated, only 7.6%. That means 92.4% of the entries are still around. So, apparently, Survivor is a pretty easy game to play. No, it should get very interesting in the next few weeks. As always, I like to start with the win percentages. According to my model, look in the upper right-hand corner here. We have the Lions at 84% to win the game, the Cardinals 76.2%, the Rams 74.2%, and of course the Rams are now out because they lost on Thursday. That probably knocked out a lot of Survivor entries. And I talked about this last week where I might do my Survivor picks on Thursday morning instead of Saturday morning. Well, I'm glad I didn't do it this week because I probably would have picked the Rams for my not as greedy entry. But I did pick the Rams in a couple of moneyline parlay bets and a 10-point super teaser. But at least they didn't knock out one of my Survivor entries. And we have the Bills at 73.7% and the Colts at 72.6%. And as I always say, I always look at the teams that have at least a 70% or better chance to win the game according to my model. Let's check out my entries. As I mentioned before, my first entry got knocked out in week 3 because I picked the Packers to beat the Browns. And that was my greedy entry. But my not as greedy entry, which is now becoming more greedy, I went with the Lions in week 4. So while it looks like I used a lot of good teams already, and that's true, I still have a lot of good teams left, including the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Broncos, and so on. But for week 5, since I didn't pick the Rams, I'm going with the Colts at home against the Raiders. On Saturday morning, the Colts are still 6.5 to 7-point favorites at home this week against the Raiders. Entry number 3, strategery. Again, I'm very happy I picked the Bengals in week 1. I wouldn't want to pick them now. Pick the Lions in week 2, the Buccaneers in week 3, and look at the Packers in week 4. Of course, they tied the Cowboys 40-40, but in ESPN Eliminator Challenge, a tie still survives. So that might be kind of shocking right there when you look at that. But for this particular Survivor pool, this entry is still alive. And this entry has a lot of good teams still available. So who are we going to pick this week in week 5? Well, one of the basic strategies is to pick against the worst team. And I think it's pretty much consensus at this point that the Titans are the worst team in the league right now. So I'm picking the Cardinals at home against the Titans. And they're at least 7.5 to 8-point favorites on Saturday morning. And they have a 75.9% win probability according to my model. So the Colts and the Cardinals in week 5. Now, it's interesting because these two teams, the Colts and the Cardinals, that I'm picking in week 5, actually play each other next weekend in Indy. And again, let me say one more thing here. You don't see the Chiefs on here. You don't see the Eagles. You don't see the Broncos. I have a lot of good teams here, a lot of good matchups. I'm looking forward to picking later on in the year. Good luck getting week 5 Survivor picks. Let's go!